Hello, everyone. We are live on the Overland Pod. We have been backstage talking about being healthy, and that's always a hot topic with my wife and I, and also with our guest this evening, Shane, founder of Glacial Gear. Thank you for being with us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, this
Beyond
this week
happy.
has gotten off to a pretty good start. We were home, not feeling very well, but decided we were going to get better, and we just willed ourselves to being better and got out and did a little bit of hiking this weekend. Took PJ on her longest hike ever, almost 6 miles, and she made it. Gia actually carried the
I
backpack that
did.
we carry her in and didn't get to use
Just
it. So
just in case,
just in
because
case,
just in case.
we had to stop at all the little creeks and ponds and everything and let her swim and get cooled off, and she loved that. But she had a really good time. And then we came home and made the world's best toffee. So we got out, did a little thing, and then came home and made some sugar. So that's the way it
It's
goes
tis
sometimes.
the season, right? Tis the season.
It
That's
it looked like
actually baking and candy making, the things that I do to feel a little more Christmassy. So yeah,
Yeah.
it,
totally.
it looked like enough toffee to feed an army.
Yeah. Yeah. It
It's
was. I think we weighed it. What was the tonnage
it
on
was
that?
over 9 pounds of
9 pounds.
toffee.
9 pounds. And just so that
Well,
you know, if you saw the pictures, that's not all for us. We actually bought some little bags and stuff to give them away. We gave them away to a lot of the teachers at our school, and we're going to give some away to family. But we have to make sure and keep it hidden from ourselves, or we have to pay the toffee tax every time we go into the kitchen, and so that's bad. That's bad.
That's a
yeah.
great
Sunday,
idea.
yeah, Sunday was good. We met up with Luke and Jesse, his wife from Ultralight Sacks. We had they are actually from Arkansas, here in Central Arkansas, and they had never been to the Ouachita National Forest. So we met up with them, and it was pouring down rain. We got soaking wet, but we had a great time with them, showing them around all of our little honey holes and doing all that. They've got a little van that they've built to travel around in, and that was
We
fun showing them
we
around.
broke their van
We
though.
broke their van.
We
We
didn't
wheeled
know
their
it.
van a little
Uh-oh.
too hard.
Well, we stuck to forest roads that were not
Mm,
too that weren't too rough, but what
yeah.
did he
I
did say?
texted him Monday morning and I just said, "Hey, we had a great time. Glad y'all got to come with us. Hope you have a safe trip home. You know, really enjoyed it." And he's like, "Well, we're at the Ford dealership. Our
Oh
van broke." And I
no.
was like, "Oh man." And he said, "Yeah." He said that was the hardest we ever wheeled it, but he said it's a POS and it always breaks. So he said I'm used to it. So that was good.
Is it a transit? Was it a transit? What did they have?
It's just an old Econoline. He's got an
Oh,
old Econoline van that they have built out as a camper on the inside. It's got a lift on it, big tires, and
It
it's just
looks great.
it's a neat little setup.
oh,
Not a 4 wheel drive, so we didn't take it down any 4 wheel drive places, but it's just a nice thing for them to be able to use and get away and
yeah,
camp in and stuff, and they love it, and it's pretty neat. So we
yeah.
took them
My,
to one of our honey holes on a little lake, and it's kind of like you're on an island surrounded by water,
oh wow.
and they're like, "Oh, this is beautiful." So they had a good time,
Mm.
but now we're back at the old grind, preparing for our next adventure this week. I've got backpacking trip in the Ozark Highlands Trail with some guys. Going to do a new section I've never done before. So all week I've been packing, unpacking, packing, unpacking, weighing, packing, unpacking, weighing, and all that the way it goes. So I've packed my food, unpacked my food, took food out, put food in, and make
Almost
sure I got everything. It's fun.
he had to
So
Yeah,
he had to reconfigure his waist belt last night because and then on his new
yeah,
pack he got a small and he
yeah,
realized he maybe should have gotten a medium.
yeah. I've come to figure out on some of these backpacking packs that what they tell you that the waistband is. Uh, I got the very perfect one, but if you put any layers on,
right.
you add a little bit of space in there. And when you always, and I didn't think, okay, when most of the time when we backpack, it's in the wintertime, you've got layers on. And so I didn't add space for a few layers. And so it was pretty tight. And I thought, man, if I put my puffy coat on, this ain't gonna reach. And I want my hip belt on. I want my hip belt. And so I had I had to do a little grinding and carving and going out in the garage and finding the little straps that would go in between. So I had to make me an extension on my waist
Oh,
belt.
nice. You
And
modified it.
yeah, it works. It works.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's fun.
Yeah,
But
that's always a thing.
yeah, it is. You
But
got to
I
check it out.
think Joey likes the packing for the trip almost as much as he likes the trip because it's his chance to surround himself with all his gear, to touch all
It's
his gear,
fun.
to
It's fun.
so
Oh, it's a
he
I'm a
thing.
gearhead. I'm a
yes,
gearhead.
he
I'm a
likes his
gearhead.
gear. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
spread it out all over the bed. We came home last night. This is a funny story. So we came home last night. It was one of our only nights at home, just me and the wife. She gets on the cat. We have dinner. We make our little Vietnamese spring rolls. We had a little kit and did all this and had a great little dinner. And she makes her little nest on the couch and turns the TV on. And I go in the bedroom and I
Oh,
start
I didn't
spreading
turn the
everything
TV
out.
on. You turned the TV on to back.
Well, I already had it on. And I go in the bedroom. I start spreading everything out. She said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, I'm getting all my stuff together. I told you I was getting all my stuff together. It's my night to pack." She said, "We haven't been married long enough for me to be in this room and you to be in that room." She said, "I'm coming in there with you. We can't have two TVs on. You turn the TV on in there and I'll just come in there with you. We'll be together." And I was like, "Well, come on. This is where I'm at." So it was pretty funny. We had a good time in there just together and throwing everything out and
It's a
stuff in
good
the
point,
bag.
though. You
Yeah,
know?
it is. It was fun. We had a good time.
Well,
So
it was yeah,
Yeah.
so the bed was covered with me and all of his gear, and I
me
was
and the gear,
offering feedback.
it was great.
I have an
Taking pictures.
embarrassingly large amount of gear.
Oh, well,
Hey.
I
It's
love
easy
people
to.
like you because it doesn't make me look bad.
Oh yeah.
Because there was a time when the words came out of her mouth when she said, "Don't you think we have enough backpacking gear?" And I was like, "No. Is that even
Well,
possible?
okay,
Is it possible?"
he's gonna so I when he says, "Don't you think you have enough shoes?" I say, "I need one more pair than I already have. I need one more pair than I already have." And you never will if that's the way you measure, if that's your metric, you always need one more pair. And he needs one more piece of gear than he already
And
It's
I'll tell
almost
you
like a
this.
toffee craving.
I
Yeah,
It's close to
know.
that, you know. So
in the
there
in
just
the
needs to
over
be a
in the
shoe tax
overlanding
and a
world, in the
backpacking
overlanding
tax.
world, you say two is one and one is
One is
none.
not.
Well, in backpacking world, it's five is one and one is none. In the shoe world, it's 100 is one and one is none. So, as long as you have 100 pairs of shoes, I can always say, "Well, why do you need all these
Okay,
pairs of shoes? I don't understand."
it's all different. I've got hiking boots and hiking shoes. I've got
Right, and I've got this backpack weighs this much, and it's an ultralight, and this backpack is, I can do the same thing.
This
I
is
can
for
yeah.
do
this,
both.
that's for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why you need, 10 sleeping pads and all this other stuff. So
Oh man,
anyway,
yeah,
it's
you're
fun.
making me think about it now. I'm gonna have to pull it all out, and
Oh, I love it. I
get an
love it.
eBay list together again.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it has been fun though. He has had the guys that are going with him on his trip. They're all on a text thread, and so they've been sharing pictures of all their gear and what their pack looks like, and so they keep each other pretty entertained with all their
Yeah,
pictures that they're
we
sending back
do.
and forth.
We do. It's fun. It gives you a way to connect. It
Oh
gives you the
yeah.
way to connect and have friends and build friendships and build
Mhm.
that lifelong thing. And it's fun and I enjoy it. And
Yeah.
we tell each other all the time. We kid with each other all the time. But whatever makes the other one happy, that's what we're all about. And so I know deep down in her heart, my wife wants me to be happy and have everything I've ever wanted. And I'm saying that on this live show in front of the whole world because I know that the words would come out of her mouth if I wasn't saying them. That's exactly what she would say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing.
Oh my goodness.
It's
Well, several of the things that I'll be taking this weekend on my trip comes from Glacial Gear. And Shane, I appreciate you taking your time to come on the show.
yes.
Yeah,
Thank
I've
you
thanks for
so
been
much.
having
I've
me.
been I've been rocking your trail towel for a while now. You know, I tell you what, if there's one thing that I do, no matter what the weather is I sweat.
Yeah,
I've always been a
exactly.
sweater. You put 20 pounds on your back, you're going to work hard. and having something to wipe my face, wipe my nose, has been incredible. And so fell in love with your stuff. It was 2022, I think, when I was introduced to your products. I actually won a competition that was put on by Responsible Stewardship called the Give a Shit. And I want to talk about responsible stewardship a little bit more later. But as a result, I was sent your trail rack, and that was part of it. And since then, I've found several of your things on Garage Grown Gear, and visited your website, and I actually have something that's even a little bit bigger now. I actually have the sleeping bag liner that goes in my sleeping bag
in
now.
a beautiful color.
Oh, it's so
Jealous.
pretty, and it's so soft. That's the first thing my wife said when I opened it up. She's like, "That is so soft. It's
Mhm.
crazy soft." I said, "I know, I love it." So anyway, I couldn't be more excited to have you on the podcast, get to visit with you, know a little bit about you and your background. So I love businesses like yours, where like when you talk on your website, you give a little bit of history about your business, a little bit of history about yourself. So if you would tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and give us a little insight into who you are.
Well, I'm Shane, owner of Glacial Gear. My wife and I own it together. And it basically, the company came about. Well, I'll go back a little bit further. I did a fair amount of backpacking and camping, things like that when I was younger. My wife and I got married when we were 18.
Oh,
And so
geez.
when I'm speaking younger, talking about younger, I was quite a bit younger, and because we got married and she wasn't so much into that, so I kind of backed away from that part of my life.
Mm,
And probably, I think it was about 2015, I was riding with my daughter near our home, and she was kind of giving me a laundry list of things that, yeah, she just felt that she missed out on, that I didn't take her to do, that she knew that I'd done in the past, and backpacking was one of them. And I was like, well, I mean, I'd love to go with you. So
mm.
I started doing that with her a little bit more, and she found out she didn't really love it that much. So I just kept doing it, and I'd go to the Ice Age Trail, do like section hikes up in Wisconsin, quite a bit. And it's just, I sweat a lot, and I'd go to REI. I'd look for different types of towels that I could just clip on my shoulder strap and grab and wipe, and just, wouldn't get nasty. I knew Merino Wool had antimicrobial attributes. So I looked and looked and couldn't find anything like that. And I basically just cut up part of a Merino Wool shirt and used that for like a year or so. And then I had my aunt make one. I was like, you know what? Because at the time I didn't know how to sew. So I had her make one for me. And then I have a friend at another gear company that just kind of like pushed me a little bit and said, you know what? You need to figure out how to start selling these, because nobody makes anything like this. And my wife already knew how to sew. I learned how to sew. So we started, looking at what it would be like to put a business together, get a website up and going, and just learn all of that. And, that's kind of how it started.
Cool. That's
And we
cool.
started, it was just a black towel, and then we started making other colors, and, the neck gaiter was a thing. And pretty much I did the UL gaiter because I couldn't find anything made out of merino wool that you could just pull over your head, just over your ears, if you had a baseball cap on or something like that. Then it just seemed like a natural thing to have a regular gaiter, and then the sleeping bag liner, and and
That's
went from
cool.
there a little bit.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing about how everything started. and where it all come
Yeah.
from. Now, you grew up in Illinois, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Northern
Um,
Illinois.
in on the website about you exploring different places in Illinois. One of the places that it talks about I had never heard of before, Nippersink Creek.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so just in case we find ourselves in Illinois and want to get outdoors, where give us some places, some good places up there we could explore.
Oh man. Well, in that area, there's a chain of lakes area. That Nippersink Creek feeds into this chain. So it's about probably a 15-mile creek with 4 or 5 canoe launches that you can hop
Mm.
on at any point and take down into the lake area.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but yeah, there's Starved Rock, more down between Chicago and Peoria, out by Galena, near
Mhm.
near the Iowa-Wisconsin border is beautiful. I overlooked where I lived for the longest time, for
Mm.
probably, because I'm 54, for probably, I would say, a good 45 years of my life. It's just
Mm.
like, Illinois. I mean, I love Wisconsin's probably one of my favorite states. I
Mm.
just love everything about it, except the fact that it's brutally cold a huge part of
Yeah.
the year.
Yeah.
But I even, I overlooked a lot of things there too. And I was out west. There's a pack maker named Tom Bin. He's retired now, but his company's been around since the early 1970s. They're more day pack type things, or made
Mm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
USA. I had one of his packs, and I was out in Washington visiting a sister-in-law, and I wanted to go to his shop, and it wound up being an industrial condo. Um, like at first, we didn't know if we were in the right spot. We walked in, and it's just a bunch of people sewing, and a few desks over in the corner,
Yeah.
and like a wall with some packs hanging from it. And so I started speaking with somebody that was inside the door there, and I recognized Tom Bin was over in the back, and he was like, "Oh, let me grab him." And he came up and um, was talking to me about a lot of things, but I told him how beautiful I thought it was in the Northwest. Like
Mm.
it's one of the most beautiful places I'd ever been. And he asked me where I was from, and I told him, and he was like, "Oh man, that has to be just awesome right there by the Great Lakes." And I was like, in my head, like, I don't know. But it was that conversation made me very intentional about finding beauty in all of God's creation
Mhm.
everywhere,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's really changed my perspective on that entirely. So everywhere
Yeah.
I'm at now, I mean, I love where we lived, um, in a lot of ways.
Mm.
I'm glad to be in South Carolina now because I really love it down here. Um,
So
but
that's
yeah,
a
yeah,
that's a
there's,
beautiful area,
yeah, Wisconsin has so many great spots too.
and it's
Um,
so underrated in so many ways. Illinois is not. It's not one of those. If people say, "Where do you dream about going?" It's not really on a lot of people's radar, and that's why I
right.
ask, because there's always something there. You just have to find it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so it's Illinois is not a place that we go to, but it's a place where we go through. And
Right.
so, if it's one of those things where we're taking our time and want to do some things, like we did that this summer. When we were going up into the Northeast, there were places that we were intentional about going, but we stopped in Pennsylvania and did some trails. We stopped in New York and did some trails. We actually did a hike in New Jersey, which I was not planning on doing. Um, and it
You're
was like
welcome.
being in a third world country. And I got it was a lot different, and the takeaway was a lot different. But I've got good memories from being there. So
Yeah.
you have
I've
to
actually
you
heard a
just
lot of
come
good
upon
things
some
about New
things.
Jersey.
New
Or
Jersey is gorgeous, but it was a little too close to the city, the spot that I said, "Let's go
yeah.
Too
here." They're
close. It
supposed
was
to
right
Oh.
in the center. It was
Well, it
right
was
in the
too close
center.
to the city, like New York City, so we were
It
just
was one
barely
of those
out of it.
places
It
where
was
as soon as we got out of the car, I said, "I don't feel safe." I totally
Yeah.
fell asleep.
And I just had to remind you. I was like, just pretend we're in a different country. If we were
Oh,
in a
I
different
wouldn't have to
country,
pretend.
Oh, it is a
we
little
would
bit of a
think this
different
is
country.
interesting.
It was a different country.
Completely.
It was a
Oh,
different
that's like
country.
Chicago. Chicago is not Illinois. Chicago is
Yeah.
Chicago. You get away from there, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's totally different. The people are totally different. Everything's
Hmm.
just different. That
Yeah.
being said, I love the Chicago Cubs.
Oh,
One of my
oh
favorite sports
yeah.
in the world.
I
Um,
I love Chicago. My sister she went to got her graduate degree in Chicago at Rush University. So
okay, yeah,
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 so we spent I and being across the lake from Chicago and South Haven, Michigan, where my mom's spot is, I love Chicago.
yeah. It's a great
Um
city.
it
It
is,
just
it's
has its
fun.
issues, but
It is,
it's a
but
great city.
you're right. There's so much more to Illinois. There is so much more to Illinois. My younger sister that lived in Chicago, she actually has settled in Paducah, which is just across the Illinois
Yep.
I mean, just across from Illinois, the river from Illinois, and I mean, literally, like their property butts up to the to the river, and so across the river, you can see Illinois from their backyard, and yeah, Kentucky and that they're not too far away from Land Between the Lakes, which is a really gorgeous recreation area. But
Mm,
Southern Illinois has some amazing hiking spots.
It
Most of
does.
the times
yeah.
when we go hiking with the kids, we go to Illinois because it's got some really neat spots that are just a couple hours from where they live that are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just all kinds of rocky bluffs and outcroppings and all kinds of neat topography that we've really enjoyed
Mm.
exploring. So, Illinois has so much going for it. It's a neat place. It's
Yeah.
more
I
than
mean,
just it is way more than just
oh
Chicago.
yeah, I've never
Yeah.
been down there. Like Illinois is kind of unique. I mean, Northern Illinois and Southern Illinois are very different.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, like the
Yeah.
people, like you go to Wisconsin or Minnesota, and the people aren't that much different from Northern
Uh-huh.
Wisconsin to Southern
Mhm.
Wisconsin. Or Illinois is just kind of
Mhm.
unique, where it's kind of a northern state and a southern state a
Uh-huh.
little bit,
Yeah,
That's a
you're
good
depending.
right.
point.
Because the northern people in Wisconsin act like people from the UP.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
true.
you're up there, and you talk about a whole different world. The UP is a whole. As soon as you cross that bridge, it's like people talk different, they act different,
Hey.
they talk different, they talk different. All the signs are different. The food is different. Everything's
Mhm.
different. It is.
Pasty. Did you have a pasty?
Oh,
Oh,
we
yeah,
did.
we have
We
passes
did
Uh,
every time we go. We're on the
yeah.
every
cusp of
time,
the
and we like to find the little hole in the wall places that make them right then. Well, because I want it made right
Yeah.
then. I want it fresh. And they said, well, it'll take about 15 minutes. I say, I'll wait, because they're good when they're fresh.
Yeah.
I love them. I think they're
Oh,
so good.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Another thing, like before the podcast started, you're talking about Big Ben being, relatively quiet with tourists. I backpacked around Isle Royal, which a lot of people aren't
Oh,
familiar
mhm.
with.
yeah.
Yeah,
But that was one of the best backpacking trips I've done. And I've done quite a few.
it's on our
Oh,
list.
it's
It's on
on
Yeah.
our
it. We
list.
are so excited to do that one day.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
I
on our
would
list.
encourage you to take your time out there too.
Mm,
I don't even know how many miles of trail you could string together. We did like an 80-mile loop.
Oh, wow.
Because you can take a seaplane out there
mhm,
or a ferry from Copper Harbor in Michigan
Mhm.
to I think it's Rock Harbor on the east side of the island, and Wendigo
mhm.
is on the west side where you come out of Minnesota, which is a shorter ferry. That's what we did, but boy, it was amazing. Great
Yeah.
camp spots, shelters at almost every camp spot that
Mm,
are
Oh,
screened
wow.
in, since the mosquitoes are a thing there. I stayed in my
yeah.
tent anyway,
Oh,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
Well,
They'll
we
beautiful.
scare you
found
off.
some of those UP mosquitoes when we were up there.
Oh
They
boy.
found us. They found us, the black flies, and we got some great pictures of being in the tent, and you couldn't even hardly see outside. There were so many black flies on the outside of the tent. It was
Yeah.
amazing. But yeah,
Yeah.
the mosquitoes. Woo. In fact, when we got back to the house in Michigan, I actually looked up mosquito bodysuits. I actually Googled that and found some on Amazon. I thought, so I bet some people up there have those because man, they were
Yeah.
rough.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
We passed so many people that day when there was one day that they were really, really, really bad. And so everybody we passed on trail was wearing all their nets and everything. And there was somebody we were walking by somebody and we were laughing about how our essential oil spray that we had bought didn't work. And he's
The
like, "Oh, don't
local
worry." He
from
goes, "Yeah."
yeah,
He goes,
local
"Deep's not
store.
working either." Nothing. He's like,
Nothing
No,
works.
nothing works. And
nothing's
there's even
working.
signs. There's signs on the trail that says mosquito spray does not work.
Yeah.
And
You have to
I
have a
said
physical.
they've been sprayed with it so many times they're immune.
Yeah.
Nothing works,
I
and
mean,
we thought,
I'm
hey, we'll buy some local stuff. And we went and oh, this is local stuff made locally, blah blah blah. It worked about what 8 seconds, and then it
yeah.
quit. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm
that
not
was
going to say
another
there aren't
reason.
mosquitoes out there because there
Yeah.
are. No wood ticks. I mean, that's a unique thing is
Yeah.
there are no wood ticks on that
Yeah.
island.
No
They're
ticks.
everywhere else,
Hmm.
Oh, how
Yeah.
but
cool.
somehow they're not out there, which
That's
is a thing to worry about. I mean, they're bad in Minnesota. And I'm
oh.
Yeah,
assuming the
when we were
UP, I have,
up in the boundary waters, they were really bad, and I've always wanted to do one of the portage
yeah.
canoe portage things, but that's always scared me off. The mosquitoes just hauling you off to some unknown place and never bringing you back and sucking you dry. But other people have done it and lived, so there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way.
Yeah, I think you just get used to being bit. Like, I mean, it's an irritant to me, but I don't swell up or anything. My wife and both of my kids, I have a son and daughter in their late 20s. They get bit and they have a lump for like 2
Oh
weeks,
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I couldn't even imagine, being somewhere like that and having that happen.
yeah. No
But
kidding.
I think, yeah, you just motor through it.
Just
It's
get
like all you
through it.
can do.
Just get through it.
Get used to it a little bit.
Which
I
is one
love.
of the reasons.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm gonna
Go
interject
ahead.
though. I love your merino wool rag so much though while we were traveling because when I at my eye waters constantly. My eyes just
Yeah,
water. And backpacking, I get so tired of rubbing my hands with my eyes. I'm sorry, my eyes with my hands because my hands are first of all, you're on the trail, so they're just it's not like
dirty.
you're able to wash them all the time.
Hmm.
They're just dirty. Bug spray all over them. And so it's just so nice. I just took advantage of the rag, like just being able to wipe my eyes when I needed to, which was constantly.
Yeah,
They just
Yeah.
water. So,
yeah. And then with the antimicrobial aspect
uh-huh.
of it, it just,
Yes.
you're not. I mean, it's still dirty, but
No, it's so much
stuff can't
better than
grow
my
on it.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
than my nasty paws because what'll happen is I'll end up like, I'll get home with a case of conjunctivitis because I've been rubbing my eyes so much with my really, really dirty hands. I'll get home with pink eye, whereas if I use your rag, that doesn't happen. So,
Oh,
anyway,
I'm so glad to hear that.
another thing
Hmm.
that is a really good thing
Another
that well,
benefit.
yes,
Need to add that to the
fantastic.
benefits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
No pink eye.
No pink
yeah.
eye. And that's another thing. I mean, we're getting more of them out there now too, because we partnered up with Z-Packs making
Hmm.
a collaboration trail rag with them. And, their reach is so broad
Oh
that,
yeah.
Mhm.
we're able to get it out there to the masses a little more. Because I believe in it like majorly. And the sleeping bag liner that they have is really good. It's lighter than ours.
Mhm.
It's actually because Shreen and I make everything here except for, well, the Trail Rag Elite that just came out, their Trail Rag and Merino sleeping bag liner. We have somebody else make because we don't have the machines to be able to make the finished edge that they have.
Mm.
Um, like the merino that they have is super fine. Like you have to have a very specific finished edge on it so it
Mhm.
doesn't fall apart.
Mhm.
Mm.
um but yeah, we're pretty proud of like the products that we came up with.
That's
Oh,
cool.
cool.
All
That's cool.
around. Yeah.
One of the things I really like is on your social media, it's not all about your gear. You actually post pictures of your dogs, your family. You make it very personable. So we're actually getting to know you and your gear all at the same time, and I love that. We had some guys from Blackbeard Fire Starters on last week, and I told them the
Mhm.
same things. They like to have fun and do jokes, and it helps us to get to know you a little better. and
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate
I
that.
like that. It's very
So,
personal.
yeah, I mean, social media is a tough thing because
It
it's
is.
like, you know,
It's like your
I,
best advertisement, and you have to take advantage of that. But you want
yeah,
people to get to know you and that you're a real
right.
person, at the same
Yeah.
time.
That's what I love about social media. I mean, I truthfully don't love the business aspect of having to like, do it for the business. So,
Mhm.
I'm doing it for myself
Yeah,
more that way too,
yeah, I
and it
understand.
works. It works. Yeah. But
So,
yeah, it's a tricky thing.
so did the name Glacial Gear, did that actually come from your time on the Ice Age Trail? Is that where it came from?
Well, a little bit, but more so right in the location that we're at. What McHenry County, Illinois is where we lived.
Mhm.
It's basically to give you paint a picture. You've got Cook County where Chicago is,
Mhm.
then Lake County is directly north of that on the Wisconsin border, and McHenry County is just west of that on the Wisconsin border.
Okay.
And McHenry County's conservation department is like awesome, especially with the resources that they have. But there's a park called Glacial Park there with a lot of glacial features because it did dip down into Illinois a ways too. There's
Oh.
that section south of Milwaukee, like the glacial cames is a big feature in Kettles. I think Kenosha County alone, Kenosha and Racine County have like 30,000 glacial cames in them,
Oh.
Oh, wow,
which
I
are
didn't know
basically just ridges of gravel that was dropped off of the snow melt,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
and just deposited on a ridge, like a hill. Um, so yeah, that park was like 10 minutes from our house. And when I got back into backpacking and just being outside more, it's somewhere that I would go and do, a 2 mile loop probably three,
Mhm.
4 times a week. So it's kind of funny because my wife and I were actually in a Hobby Lobby, and I didn't really have anything to do when we were in there. And I'm just kind of like, well, I don't think I've ever told this story. I'm walking around and I'm just thinking like, okay, we're gonna do this. What do we name the business? And I started thinking about that park and just people don't think of Illinois and probably even Wisconsin, when they think of
Mhm.
glaciers.
Yeah.
And I just thought, it's paying homage to our area in a big way that
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
don't realize and bring a little, you know,
Mhm.
bringing that to the forefront a little bit more so people get knowledge of it. But yeah, I just love that place. Glacial Park is what it was called. And I think it's like 5,000 acres, something like that in its
Oh,
entirety.
that's cool.
Um, but yeah, that was what triggered it. And I was in that Hobby Lobby, like, glacial
The
gear.
place of
Yeah. So
Hobby Lobby, the place of inspiration.
Yeah.
I started Googling like, I just started checking the name on everything and it was available. The
Mhm.
website was available. It was available on Facebook, Instagram. It
And
wasn't
that's
available on
so
Instagram.
rare
That's
anymore.
another long story for another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was like, well, let's roll with it.
Do you
So
ever
that's kind
do you ever think about going into a Hobby Lobby again for inspiration on new things for your
I probably should. It was a birthplace of major inspiration. I was
Oh, that's
there.
such a good story,
Yes.
though.
And that's
Yeah,
hysterical.
yeah.
Oh
These
my god.
maps actually in the background here. There's a there's a story about those. I have quite a few of them in here. They're actual like waterproof maps that um I'm trying to remember the name of the podcast, the Mighty Blue podcast. I think it is the
I've
hiking
listened to it.
podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So this was probably, man, I bet you 6 years ago. He had a little segment where he's talking to this guy, Keith Mermel, about these maps. And at that point, he'd done a map of the Superior Hiking Trail.
Mm.
And, which ends basically in my mother and father-in-law's backyard in Jay
Oh,
Cook
wow.
Park, Minnesota. So I was like, man, I'd really like to get a hold of one of those maps. And I couldn't find them anywhere. So I emailed the guy. I was like, my wife grew up, here. And, I just kind of rambled on a little bit. And I got an email back and he said, I can send it to you. No problem. Just, tell me what
Wow.
to do. Give me your credit card number. And I said, your wife wouldn't happen to be one of the Townsend girls, would she? I was like, what? So
Small world.
he actually knew my father-in-law's best
Oh my gosh.
son-in-law. Yeah. But I got them and we took those to Hobby Lobby and had them framed there and they do an excellent job. I mean, I can't say enough about Hobby Lobby.
My sister, she
Mhm.
worked in the framing department in college. That's how she
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Kind of a
Yeah.
long story to bring, some things that I have in here to
Hey,
the Hobby Lobby part of the
I
whole
love
deal
it.
there. But
I love it. That's getting to know you a little better, and that's what we're here for. That's what we're
Yeah.
here for. Um,
yeah.
Funny.
I love on your website where you take a little bit of time and a spot on there to tell about the history and about how you hike the Ice Age Trail and a little bit. Of course, we had a little more in depth here. You talking about where the name come from, but
Mhm.
we've interviewed so many small boutique companies that share the same kind of story about how they're out on the trail and they're thinking about, I need this. I need this. I need something that will do this. And they think of something that will make their lives better. And you actually follow through with it and create something that not only makes your life easier, but also helps the community, makes everybody else's life easier. And really love that.
Yeah.
You think about it, come up with it, and run with it. And so I love stories like that. And so that was the birth of the trail rag out there
Yeah.
on that trail.
Yeah, and Garage Grown Gear actually, before we launched our website, we partnered up with them, and they've been absolutely huge for small
Mm,
businesses like us.
yeah.
They've had so much growth since that point. We started we launched our website April 1st, 2020. So we
Oh,
probably had
nice.
that.
That's
Yeah.
Right in the middle of COVID.
Woo.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But that was a good time though, because everybody was going outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Everybody was
that's
going outside. We would go out and we would try and find places to camp, and we couldn't find any places to camp, and places that would normally be completely empty. People were getting outside, getting outdoors, because if they were in the city, they couldn't do anything. Everything was
Yeah.
closed. And so that was really a good time, and it was actually a boom for a lot of really small businesses because people were staying home, getting on the internet and buying everything. Uh,
Right.
and there's so many businesses that boomed during that time, especially in the overland world, the backpacking world, because people were getting outside and getting
Yeah.
away. And so you hit it at a pretty good time, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a heavy equipment operator for a 33-year career doing that. That I retired from 3 years ago, and yeah, it was a weird time. I was still doing that for a couple of years
Mhm.
before we started Glacial Gear, but yeah, that was a crazy period of time as far
Yes,
as
it
like
was.
who could work, who couldn't work,
Yeah.
and you know,
Yeah.
and
The new
Illinois was a
term
little.
the new term essential came out,
Yeah.
and you found out whether you were or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not good.
So, have you ever had any other businesses that you've started, or was this your first
No,
foray
this
into
was it.
That's awesome.
as
No,
an
I just like
entrepreneur?
chased after my grandfather started. He was a dirt farmer, His parents were immigrants, and him and his brother started an excavating business back in the probably late 1930s, early
Okay.
40s, and
Hmm.
then started the gravel pit where we had a family business for like 70 years.
Hmm.
And then that kind of went the wayside early 2000s, and I worked for somebody else until I was able to get my pension from that.
Oh, that's
So
Mhm.
good.
so
That's
this
good.
kind of it basically started as a hobby business,
Hmm.
really. I
Okay.
mean,
So when did it go from the trail rag to other things? When you thought, oh, I can make other things out of this, and it kind of branched out. How did all that start?
I think it was just kind of organic, like I'd thought about a sleeping bag liner for a couple years, but hadn't acted on it. And then, like, my best friend is the marketing director at Z-Pack. So, like, we go on a bunch of backpacking trips, and
Hmm.
He just loves people, and he meets somebody, invites them, on a trip. And we did the Ocean to Lake Trail a few years ago that goes from Lake Okeechobee to Hobe Sound in Florida. So you're basically kind of walking through swamps a lot of the time. But he invited
Really?
this guy that I don't know how many people have now. I think he's the seventh person to have finished all the National Scenic Trails. Patrick French is his name. And we were on that hike and just kind of hit it off. And he wound up being on that TV show Naked and Afraid, which he's been on,
Yeah,
I think, 4 times now.
I saw you posted about him.
But I picked him up after a trip. And after his first Naked and Afraid, he flew from Argentina to Chicago. I picked him up, went to my house for like a half hour. We went to a Cubs game, came back, and he spent like 5 days with me before he started the Ice Age Trail. And I saw his sleeping bag liner, and he's a professional through hiker, so it's all he's been doing since 2015. And he had his sleeping bag liner from 2015, and I looked at it and I was like, I've been thinking of making like something, So before he left, I got one designed and made, and he used it on the Ice Age Trail, and then he used it on the whole North Country Trail from North Dakota to Vermont. So he tested it pretty well for me before we launched it. And so that's how that came about. It was just kind of things like that. I'd like to have a hoodie at some point, but we just have to, I have some thoughts for a design and the merino. There's the way the textile industry has changed in the world. There's basically no textile industry left in the States. So
is it all China?
China, Vietnam, the wool all comes from Australia or New Zealand primarily still, but then it goes, some companies have a proprietary fabric that they design, but there's a specific company that basically does everything from Injinji's toe socks, and big companies like that have a lot of different excellent fabrics that I have a really lightweight merino sun hoodie in mind, but we just have to get a little bit bigger before we can do that.
Yeah.
So
well, you offer quite a few items now: blankets, sleeping bag liners, gaiters, and then your trail rags, along with a few other things. So you've really branched out since in a small amount of time. So
it's one little black trail rag. Yeah, the blanket seemed like a no-brainer. The fabric it's really the lightest merino wool blanket there is out there. So for people that hikers aren't gonna use that, although I know quite a few that have. But it's being on your overlanding podcast. That's one thing I'm like, when I have the time, because I bought a Ford Bronco a couple of years ago. I had it ordered for 2 years, but I have that. It's going to be a process. I have
it is
like a 15-year plan for the thing. I have a goose gear plate system already in the back.
Nice. Oh, you went nice.
Yeah. I have their tailgate table, and so I have a rooftop tent. I haven't gotten to use it yet though. And we just by chance came across a Thor Sanctuary Sprinter van last spring that somebody had for a ridiculously cheap price compared to what they were going for on the market. And we had a 19-foot camper trailer that just didn't really work out for our lifestyle. You just have to drag the things around, and that's not really us. So I made an offer on this thing, and they took it. So we have our van now that we're gonna take out. Yeah.
Somebody is so
So jealous
jealous.
right now. So
Oh, I'll
jealous.
show it to you someday. You guys are
That's
more than welcome to
Oh,
come stay with us here.
that is
You're
that is on my
there.
list. The van life. I want to live in a van down by the river. He started it, and I want to live it. So
yeah, that yeah.
we
Well,
have a
they've got
little list on our phones that we call if we were rich,
And
and
it's the stuff that we're saving for.
yeah.
The
so that's the number one thing.
Vans
Yeah.
on the list.
Well,
Oh,
they've gotten so expensive. That's
it's
why.
ridiculous. They're more than houses.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So when I saw the price they were asking, I offered significantly less. Because I wasn't really prepared to do it. I just figured, well, if they take it, I'm just gonna figure it out.
Mhm.
It's a 2021 and it has like 35,000 miles on it,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
so, it's all-wheel drive. Yeah.
Oh
So
wow.
anyway, I mean, the overlanding community's been like, I haven't been, you know, in it a ton, but it's been close to my heart and,
Mhm.
part of a community that, I feel could use our products with the sleeping
Oh,
bag liner
completely.
Definitely.
and the
Oh,
blankets.
the
So it's,
blankets.
Mhm.
Because we're
yeah,
always we always are looking for the blankets that have, because when we're up in the rooftop tent, we're not necessarily staying in sleeping bags. We've got our blankets. And so
right.
we're always looking for ones that feel good against our skin, that in the humidity, when there's not, when you're not in air conditioning and stuff like that, and with the moisture or whatever the air is doing, still feels good against our skin, but also is small enough for us to be able to leave in the tent and close it down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we don't want anything that's super, super big or puffy or bulky, but yet still has a lot of warmth and comfort with it.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
Yeah. And
And
it's just,
those are not easy to find. It's hard to find that combo.
no. Yeah.
And so the merino wool has been fan freaking tastic with
Yeah.
that, because you have to have the compressibility, because one thing about a rooftop tent is when I open it, I want it ready. I want
Right.
everything in there. When I have a small vehicle like you having a Bronco, when you have a small vehicle like that, and you're like, I don't need a rooftop tent. I can sleep on the ground. Well, if you've got a ground tent inside your vehicle, you have to carry sleeping bags, you have to carry cots, you have to carry pillows, you have to carry all your blankets, everything that you sleep on, mattress pads, all that stuff that takes up room inside your vehicle. And so
Hmm.
with the rooftop tent, everything stays in the tent. And
Yeah.
so we want everything to be up there. So our pillows are up there, blankets are up there, everything's up there. But in order to be able to do that, it has to be light and compressible. And so with the merino wool, it's made that possible for us
Yeah.
to be able to do that. So it's
Yeah.
so nice. So nice. But yeah.
Yeah. It's what rooftop tent do you have? The one that you're
I've got a 23-0 Kabari. So
Bari.
uh it's not a clamshell. It is I can't remember what they call it, but it's just got two latches on the back and it just pops straight up.
Straight up.
Yeah, and you
So
sleep
it's
long
back
ways.
entrance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a back. Well, we go in the side.
you could
You
do a
can
back
go in the
Okay.
entrance,
back.
but
You can go in the back if you want
But
to,
it's
but
open to the back. It
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it just pops straight up.
And then
But
we have an OVS Everest. Is that what we have on
and
the?
that's a clamshell. That's what we
Yeah.
have on the Subaru. So it pops
yeah.
up, and then another part flips out, and so you sleep sideways on it. On the other one, we sleep long ways. But both of them were able to keep the mattress, the pillows, blankets, everything stays in there. So when we open it up, it's ready,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about it. So when you talk about your gear being, or the overlanding world and the backpacking world being very closely related, that is exactly true, because we bought a vehicle, or we outfit our vehicles to get us to the trailheads, to get us
Yeah.
to the places where we can actually get out and get in canoes or get in kayaks or get on paddle boards or get to a backpacking trailhead, or ride our bikes or anything like that. It all kind of works together. And so, yeah, it's definitely transferable. And man, I
Yeah.
tell you what, it's a lifestyle that is very popular right now, and people are getting outside more than any time in my life. And you're
Yeah.
only a year older than I am, and so you've seen a lot. Uh, of different changes in
That's true.
the outdoors backpacking and the gear industry. And right now, it is
Yeah.
an amazing time. It's an
Uh,
Oh,
amazing
yeah.
time.
rem-
So, yeah.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Gia.
Oh, I was just gonna say, talking about the gear, like looking at my dad was a hiker, and looking at my dad's pictures of the gear that he would have on his back on
It's
his backpacking trips.
light
And
years
then
difference.
when I graduated from college, my first stuff of backpacking 20 years ago is so, I mean, nobody walks around with an external frame anymore. Like,
No, it's
unless
Mm-mm.
changed
it
so
was the
much.
Kelty external frame that was like the thing, you
Yeah,
know?
Kelty
Yeah.
had the market. They had the
I
corner on the
know.
market.
And nobody,
Yeah. I bring
it's
some extra things, like I like to watch my phone or listen to stuff in the tent. I really don't love being in my tent at night, so I bring a pretty decent sized battery to have with me. I'd gotten a
Hmm.
graphene battery. That
Mm.
technology is so new, but they charge up so fast. Like you can charge a 10,000 mAh battery in like 30 minutes. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, my base weight is probably like 15 pounds usually,
Mm.
roughly. Seems like once I have food and water, I'm always right a little over 20 pounds. That's why I'm looking to drop 20 pounds off my body weight now,
Yeah,
up where
yeah.
I was 2 years ago. So
It
right
makes a
now I'd be
big
the
difference.
weight carrying my pack.
Makes a big difference. That's for sure.
Oh, it does.
It
Yeah, it's
sure
night and
does.
day.
Goodness,
Yeah.
and that was really one of the things that got me back into backpacking. Did it a long time ago in college and high school, but when I was heavy and trying to lose weight, I was in the gym walking on the treadmill, and I thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And I bought a weighted vest, and I thought,
Hmm.
okay, yeah, this will work. Well, then I thought, why don't I just go outside and wear a backpack and go backpacking? And that's what got me back into backpacking was the wanting to lose weight, the wanting to get into shape and stay into shape. And it's the best of both worlds when you can actually get out, enjoy life, be healthy.
Yeah,
And it
it
is
is.
so much
Oh,
more enjoyable.
it is
Oh,
so much more fun when
Yeah.
you're,
yeah. And just mentally,
yeah.
like since we moved down here, I haven't really had much of an opportunity to get out
Hmm.
at all, just for little day hikes. And man, like I miss it mentally. I feel so much better if I just get out for a half hour somewhere,
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
walk through the woods, you know.
It makes a huge difference. Let's talk about for just a minute. Let's talk about your the material that you use and why
Yeah.
you use it. It's a specific kind of merino wool, and it comes from a specific place. Tell us why you chose that.
Well, the um merino wool is just like it's close to second to none as far as its vapor transferability through it without absorbing moisture. That's a huge one for merino
Mm,
specifically, and the antimicrobial factors of it, the temperature regulating factors are huge. Until somebody actually uses it and feels the difference of just not getting too hot or too cold and being able to
Hmm.
hmm
regulate through that temperature um, change is huge. So yeah, there's a organization called ZQ that we've been able to maintain using, that oversees different ranchers in New Zealand, as far as the quality of merino that they're getting, the way that they treat the animals. For a smaller company like us, it's not. We're really fortunate that we're able to get that in multiple colors and not have to buy huge yardage
mm,
to maintain it. But they're they're a pretty special organization as far because there's a lot of animals that don't get treated well out there, as far as sheep go.
hmm
So it's really important to us to know that we're getting it from somewhere where it's well sourced like that. But yeah, I mean, the merino wool that we use is it was It was probably a year-long process of getting to the point where, we knew exactly what we wanted to use. It was pretty
Mm,
intentional process getting
that's cool.
getting specifically what we have right now.
I
And we've
like it.
stuck with it.
Did you get to go to New Zealand as a part of the process?
No, we didn't get to do that.
Oh,
I would
Aw,
love
man.
that's
that.
on the list. That's on the
Yeah.
list.
That'd be a great way now to write off being able to go there, to do
Oh
a little
man,
What
hiking.
is this?
there's
Uh,
a there's a guy that we follow on YouTube. We don't watch a whole lot of different TV shows or something, but there's a guy on YouTube. His name is Harmon Hoek, and he
mm,
does silent hiking all over the world. So he doesn't talk on his videos, but he's got a guy that creates
like it.
like background music. But he is one of the best cinematographers I've ever seen, and because of him, we have a humongous list of different hikes to do all around the world, and I have him to thank for that. But New
Mm,
Zealand, New Zealand is outrageous. It's so beautiful, and
yeah.
I'll
The
be going.
founder of Z-Packs actually did the Te Aurora with his wife, the through hike
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
from north to south
Yeah,
across both
yes.
islands.
Oh my
Yeah, I mean
word.
it sounds awesome. That's a long
yeah.
ways away.
Long ways. It's a long ways. Big country.
It's it's a
I
big
love
time commitment.
on your website you give the characteristics of the merino wool. It's and you don't just say we use this because it's good. You give so many different characteristics, and I want to kind of highlight those real quick. It's warm. It's water retention. I didn't know this. It can absorb up to 30% of its weight before it feels wet.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
still it maintains its insulating factors.
It's durable. It's very strong. It's breathable. Cooling. It has moisture cooling in its fibers. It's moisture wicking. Uh, soft, incredibly, and odor resistant, which is huge for through hikers because a lot of times you just
Yeah,
have to get over yourself, but still you don't. There's a certain
right.
point you just don't want to get to. So that's good.
Yeah. And then that was really, one of the main things in my head initially, because it's just everything gets gross. It's
Everything
like
gets
this
so
thing's
gross.
touching your face all the time. And
Oh yeah. No, it's yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, your story about with your eyes, Gia, that's, you know,
yeah.
I'd love for you to put something on Instagram about that. 'Cause
Oh,
that's a
oh,
great story. I've never heard anybody,
we
Oh,
will.
I
have
yeah.
that experience with it yet, but that's important,
It
that's
is,
awesome. That like warms my
especially to
heart to
somebody
hear.
that it happens to all the time,
Yeah,
and she knows it's coming, so she has to be careful and be careful about what she uses to wipe her face with. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's a good
I think
story.
that's a big thing about merino in general is people just have to use it and experience it and then have those experiences to,
Mhm.
realize for themselves that it's a big difference. Socks
Yes, it is.
too,
Hmm.
They're-
Oh my goodness.
So I never
My goodness.
understood how much of a difference good socks make to
oh my
comfort
gosh.
until in the last couple of years. It's just,
Yeah.
All it
uh,
takes
you know,
is for you to get one bad pair of socks waterlogged that will not dry out, and you've got one good pair of socks, and you're like, "Why am I? I'm never taking
mm,
these other socks again. I'm sticking with."
Yeah. When I did the Ocean to Lake Trail, that was quite a learning experience for me because so much of it is underwater and it's sandy. I mean,
mm.
you're basically probably, I don't know, just over ankle deep to knee deep in the water a lot of the time.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I was
Are you what?
I thought, yeah, I thought I'd be able to, we'd stop, I'd take care of my feet. It would just be I'd have it dial in. By the end of that hike, I lost so much skin in the bottom of my feet from
Oh
being
my
wet. The
Oh
word!
my
last day
goodness.
I stepped
Like
on there
trench
was a
foot?
no,
No,
unfortunately
no.
that
I
didn't
mean, no.
happen.
I was wondering if you got that too, but keep going. I'm
Yeah,
still
I
interested.
stepped on a root like the last day and I could just feel all the skin on the bottom of the middle of my foot slide.
Oh,
Oh,
So we got finished this hike, got to the ocean and I couldn't even walk in the parking lot.
oh
And I
my
was like, wow,
goodness.
man, am I just, what do I do? Like, am I not gonna, I mean, I've realized there's a bunch of water and everything, but I've gotten a lot of blisters in the past. And I have a podiatrist friend that I went and saw, and he told me that I'm one of part of the 7% of the population that has the same thickness skin on the bottom of their foot that people have on the top of their foot. And I was
Oh,
like, okay, well, what do I do
oh,
about that? And he said, don't get your feet wet for one, which is
Oh,
hard to do,
yeah,
when you're hiking, because you don't know, you're going to be in rain. Um,
exactly.
so,
plus
you know,
I mean, so many trails, there are water crossings. You can't,
yeah, yeah,
I mean, unless
yeah.
Mhm.
you're
So,
like completely fleet of foot like my husband, he's fine. It's me. It's me that.
well, so shout out to this company, Exoskin, that it's veteran owned. It's a small company. I think they're in Rhode Island or Delaware, but he came out with toe socks. They have non-toe sock versions also, but he has a proprietary fabric that he uses, or a coating on it. They're not merino wool or anything, but
Mhm.
I ordered a pair of those before I did the New England Trail a few years ago. We did the 235 miles. I think it wound up being in two legs. We did the southern part in the spring, and then the northern part when the colors would be changing in the fall. Before that hike, I ordered these socks, and one pair didn't come. So I was like, okay, what do I do? Because I like to have I'd like to have 5 pairs of socks, 4 minimum. So I'm switching them out, cleaning them,
Mhm.
and that's been a huge thing. The guy, my friend Patrick, that was on the Naked and Afraid shows that did all the national scenic trails, like that, he told me that, like, bring 5 pairs of socks with you. That's weight you're not going to regret, you
Mhm.
know. So I didn't have this pair of socks, so I found a number, and I call the number, and I get the owner of the company, and I'm talking to him, for probably a half hour, and he convinced me to buy a pair of their underwear too. And I have not had any chafing issues. I've hiked like hundreds of miles for sure since then. I haven't had a blister again
What?
ever. And
Hmm.
probably, I mean, I'm not somebody that can go out and do 5,000 miles. I don't have
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that kind of a
Yeah.
lifestyle, but I've done easily 600 or 700 miles since then, and it was just life changing.
Okay,
Wow.
that
Just
I get blisters. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah,
Really bad.
Exoskin. If you can remember Exoskin, and I don't know if it'll
Exoskin.
work for everybody, but man, it was a game changer for me.
What?
I've tried some other, and they're lightweight, so
Mm.
your feet fit in, your normal
Mhm.
shoe pretty easily.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so boy, yeah, socks are
Socks
important.
are a big deal. They're a big deal.
It's a big deal for
It
Gia and
is
I
a
anyway.
big
Oh,
deal.
yeah.
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
Comfort.
So I mean, I've kind of rejected this trail name, but I got tagged with the Babyfoot trail name because
Oh,
because I told this story, and then, like, my best
'cause
friend
that
was like, I was like, "Well, that's your trail name now." I was like, no, it's not.
baby
And so we actually
baby.
went on that New England trail hike, and I wound up being the only person that didn't get a blister on that hike. So I
You're
was
like,
like, I reject that
yeah.
name.
No
Yeah,
kidding.
you're like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
take
pretty much
baby
that.
was.
foot.
Take that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
When that's an awesome trail too, if you ever have an opportunity to do that.
Mm.
And
Oh,
you're literally, they have this green corridor through the middle of Connecticut and Massachusetts, where you walk through a handful of towns, but especially in Connecticut, you're southern Massachusetts and almost all of Connecticut, you're running these ridges, and there's just little New England towns that you're overlooking. Just
Mm.
beautiful.
oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
wow.
I'd
And what
never
what
really
trail is that? What trail is
That's
that?
the New England Trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it ends at the New Hampshire border, but it's relatively uneventful. It just ends in the middle of the woods.
Mm.
So, and I won't pronounce this correctly because I'm a Midwesterner and not from New Hampshire, but it's Mount Monadnock, I think. It's the second most summited mountain in the world next to Mount Fuji, but it's
Oh,
18 miles into New Hampshire. So we pushed past, the northern terminus of that trail, and we ended on the top of that
Oh
mountain,
my
and you could see
goodness.
Wow.
Boston from 60, 70 miles away. And yeah,
Wow.
that was a great hike.
Well,
Very
Well,
that
isolated.
we would
Surprise.
love to do that because
we
after
fell
this
in
summer, I
love with
think
New
New Hampshire
Hampshire.
is probably our new favorite state. It is. It
Yeah,
was. It
really.
blew us away. New Hampshire and Vermont,
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
underrated. Beautiful, beautiful states.
Yeah. On the
Absolutely
top of
love
my list of places that I want to get to and spend more time.
them.
Mhm.
Definitely us
Just,
Completely.
too. That
just the
yeah, we talked about that, and if there's two places out of all the places that we went this summer, we would definitely want to go back to and spend some time there. New Hampshire and Vermont, just
mm,
outrageous. Vermont's got a cheese tour, and we went on the
like
cheese
Wisconsin.
tour,
Okay, so
and
it's not like you get on a bus and they're like,
no,
"Okay, we're gonna go get
there's a
cheese."
map
That's
of
not
all
Give you a
it.
these little
map.
mom and pop little places that has
That's
either
awesome.
sheep or cows or goats or whatever, and they make their own cheese, and you just pull up to these little, I don't know. Some of them look like outhouses or huts or barns or whatever. There's nobody there. It's all on the
Oh,
honor system.
wow.
You go in there and get some cheese and leave some cash in their little box, and we've got a freezer that we take with us. We came home with mountains of cheese. We just wanted it all. It was just great. So we love Vermont. It's
Yeah.
so good. We went up
Yeah.
Mount Washington and did all that. It was I just love it. It's so beautiful there.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if I could travel, my wife's kind of more of a homebody, but I would probably easily be able to spend 40% of my time at home and 60% of my time
mhm.
traveling. There's so many places out west, that I
Oh,
Oh,
want to
same.
yeah.
want to get
Yeah,
to.
Oh, so
same
many.
here.
So Arkansas, you're probably still in the Midwest area where there's no public land to really go on. As far as, do you have public land that you
Oh, we've
can
got tons.
overland? Do you
We're
really?
we're like I think we're like number 10 or 11
Oh, that's
out
super
of the 50
interesting to
states as
know.
far as percentage because we have all of the Ozark National Forest and all of the Ouachita National Forest. So we've got a ton of public land. It is, and we're only 20 minutes from the Ouachitas. So and the Ouachita Trail, which is one of the it's about 220 miles, I believe. It ends about 30 miles from our house.
Yeah.
So we're really close to that.
Yeah. So
Um,
Arkansas, we have over 3 million acres of public land,
Oh,
and that's
really?
about 10% of the total acreage in the state.
mhm.
Just doing some quick Googling. So yeah,
Yeah.
10%
Yeah,
of the
we're pretty
state is
high.
public land.
Yeah, we're pretty high on that.
But you can just
Yeah.
drive out there and pitch
Mhm.
wherever. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
that's why overlanding is so big in the state because
Huh.
people from Texas that has no public land, Oklahoma
Mm.
has no public land, they all come here.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so it's perfect for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so knowledge has occurred for me. Like,
Yeah.
that's
It's
awesome.
pretty cool.
I thought
Well,
I
it's
thought we're just
Yeah.
like, too bad for us. You got to go out to the west side of the country. I mean,
Yeah,
even in
well, nobody
Illinois,
wants to come here in the summer because it's so
no,
hot.
it's miserable.
Yeah,
Then the fall and the spring and the winters are really not too bad either. But man, I tell you what, from June to September, you want to go somewhere else.
It's not pleasant.
yeah.
It's
It's
too
not
hot. It's too
pleasant.
buggy. It's too hot. It's too buggy.
Yeah,
They
we
get
Yeah.
get
pretty
lots of
buggy
ticks.
there.
Yeah, lots
Yeah.
of ticks,
Are there a
and
Yeah.
lot of
mosquitoes.
lakes in your area? Is that
Yeah.
the?
Yeah,
Um,
quite a
yes.
few.
Most of the if they're natural lakes, they're gonna be, what do they call them? The oxbow lakes that are made from rivers that, because, where the Arkansas River runs through, there are some oxbow lakes that are along the side of it. There are a lot of lakes, but, other than the ones that are, um, the many, many, many lakes, most of them are man-made from damming up
Hmm.
rivers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
We
what
don't
they
have
all are down here.
yeah.
yeah.
We also have the very first national river. The Buffalo National River is here, and it's
It's
126 miles.
stunning,
Really?
You can float the whole thing, and so it's that's a real popular thing that we have
and
here as well. So,
gorgeous bluffs along the side.
hmm
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's one
Yeah.
thing, one of our favorite books, we love the book Bill Bryson's Walk in the Woods. We've really,
Uh-huh.
like everybody's, book about that they love about the Appalachian Trail, and it's hysterical. But Bill Bryson speaks so negatively of the Forest Service, and he talks about they really should call it the Road Service, because the Forest Service, all they do is make roads, to make roads, to make roads. But we were talking, we are like, you can tell that Bill Bryson has not been on Forest Service roads because they're not paved highway. They are
No, they're
little
not.
janky roads, little janky,
I've been on a lot of Forest
dirt.
Service roads in Florida that, up in the Panhandle, in the park areas there, and it's some of it's not very traversable.
Yeah,
Yeah, no kidding.
exactly. Yeah, I
No
mean, and the
kidding.
majority of the roads, like, they're sketchy dirt, gravel road, that they've,
Yeah.
and so it just is one of those. I was like, that's a part of his book. He is usually so good at research, but that is one
Yeah,
that he does not understand what he's saying when he's like bemoaning the
yeah,
Forest Service and their roads. It's like, oh, they're not what you think they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've done are you familiar with the Trans Catalina Trail
Hmm.
off the coast of
On Catalina,
California?
on Catalina
Um,
Island.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. It's a I think 36-mile through hike out there, and the Wrigley family that owned the Cubs initially
Uh-huh.
owned that whole island at one time.
Yeah.
And they, I don't know what year it was. There's a book out there because I've done it. I took my daughter the first time and we didn't quite finish the trail, and I did it over New Year's last year. But there's an airport with a gift shop and a restaurant that serves bison burgers. There's like 180 bison that just wander on the island
Oh
freely. You
wow.
kind of have
Yeah.
to navigate through at times,
Huh.
but they donated like all of this, the majority of that island, and had a conservation, um you know like they created the, I think it's the Trans Catalina, I don't remember what it's called, but it's like a private organization
Mhm.
that maintains it and runs the whole thing, and it's just really awesome. I would encourage you guys, if you wanted to do not a super long hike, but a really neat one with
Hmm.
great views, because
How
you can see the
cool.
Sierras out there. I mean, the majority of it's elevated, so if it's
Mm-hmm.
clear, you can see clear across to LA and see the
Okay.
white caps of the
Yeah.
Sierras.
I've
Yeah,
been I've we
How
went
neat.
we went to I've been to Catalina a couple of times. I used to some good friends of mine lived in California, so I go out to visit them. But no, we never did anything like that. How cool.
yeah, you
Did
just
not
go
even
into
know that was a
Avalon. Yeah,
yeah.
Hmm.
you just take the ferry there and walk.
Yeah, we do that.
Campground's like a half mile out of town, and then
Mhm.
How
Okay,
cool.
how
then you,
cool.
then you leave Two Harbors. You take the ferry from Two Harbors back to Long Beach.
Oh, how neat.
But
Mm-mm-mm.
it's not a huge time commitment. You have to get yourself out there, but it's like a gem of a hike for
Awesome.
sure.
That's so cool. Well, hey, we're getting down to where we like to call the time limit on this thing. But before we do, I want you to talk about one thing that you have on your website, somebody that you partner with, responsible stewardship. I love this organization because they're not like other organizations that just come up with rules and different like principles to follow and just put it out there hoping everybody will do it. They actually do things. They actually lead in cleanup and doing things like this, which is, they were a huge part of helping clean up Hurricane Helene and things like that. They really
Hmm.
made an impact on that. And I'd love to get Benny Braden on here and talk to him about what he's got going on there. But if you would just talk about them and a little bit about your work with them and partnering with them.
Yeah, I mean, Benny is, one of the most passionate people I know in so many different ways, but he held the fastest known time for all the miles through the Smokies for a few years. So, his heart's near and dear to that area where he lives around Knoxville,
Mm-hmm.
and there's so much like trash and graffiti and stuff like that there that, I mean, it really like hit him where he started. I mean, he on social media, really, his personal account, he started just asking people to show up, meet him at different places. And then it eventually grew into partnering with or combining with another organization that's in that area. And Yeah, he is a mover of men. And women.
Yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
he's really gotten people to step up, pick up the torch, and do these huge cleanups. And it's been almost, I guess, 2.5 years ago. There's this, I guess it's a company called the Highlander Adventure. They're Croatians, and most of their hikes are abroad, but they have one in Big Bear Lake. In the San Bernardino Mountains every year, and the last 3 years, this will be the fourth year they've had it. And Benny actually had a lot of um, health issues in general, but is some major problems with his feet, where he was just struggling to be able to hike and didn't really know if he'd be able to do it again. But he went out there for this event and figured he'd probably just get through the first couple of days. And I think it was I think it was about halfway through the second day. He's just kind of moving along. He said, I feel pretty decent. And you're on a hike, you kind of split apart a little bit, come back together. It's toward probably 3/4 of the way through the end of the day, come up behind him on a road, and he has like this probably 15-foot half inch chain like hung over his neck, and he's carrying part of a drive shaft in one hand. And you have people from all over the world at this hike, and they're like, what are you doing? And he was explaining to them, just like, this is our land to take care of. Just the whole, you see it, pick it up, take it and clean up, leave it a little better than you found it.
Hmm.
And by the end of this hike, there were, I think, so many people had jumped on board. I can't remember how much weight and trash they picked up. But this organization, saw this and, was so inspired by it. And they knew the kind of reach that they have, because they do things in Asia, Africa. So responsible stewardship's reach has really gotten to be worldwide, just from a guy walking down,
Yeah.
a Forest Service road, essentially, I guess is what it
Yeah.
was there, carrying some trash. And, so yeah, he's had a big impact on me, and we've partnered with him as much as we can, to try to get the cleanups and, just try to raise money for the organization, because they,
Mhm.
just for bags and gloves, and, it costs them a lot of money. They're in the process of trying to buy a boat. So there's a lot of rivers,
Yeah.
and different waterways in that area, Tennessee and North Carolina, south of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, where they want to get a boat to get out and clean up garbage in the lakes. But yeah, what a awesome organization. Like,
That's
just
cool. Well, I have a
heard
huge
from one
respect for
guy.
them. Huge respect for them, because I love how they post all the time about the weight that they have collected, the different places that they do. They have trash or organized trash cleanups all the time in
Yeah.
different areas, and I have a huge respect for them. They
Yeah.
do great
And,
work.
and it's really spread, across the country. There's some people out west that have picked up the torch for responsible stewardship and are starting to organize cleanups out in that area too, Utah. And yeah, so man, and what a humble guy.
Yeah,
If you haven't met him yet, he's just a awesome person. I mean, I'm a Christian believer in, Jesus Christ, and he is too, and he just like humbles himself to, this is part of our creation that we
yeah.
are
Take care of it.
responsible for taking care of.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's a great organization. Yeah, I'm so
totally
happy to
agree.
be partnered with them. Yeah.
That's cool. I love it. I love it. Well, make sure that you follow Glacier Gear on Instagram, glacial.gear. Website is glacialgear.com. Go there and subscribe to their emails. And they also have a Facebook page, which also has a store where you can go buy some stuff. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Shane, I really appreciate the podcast. Thoroughly enjoyed getting to learn more about you, your family, your business. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. I'm so
You
happy to have
bet.
been on here.
It
Look
was
forward
so
to a
nice
visit
to
from you
meet you.
two.
Oh, please
Yeah.
come to Arkansas.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I'd love to do that too.
Yeah. Shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Well.
can help you break your van in.
Yeah.
We're good at that.
I
Yeah.
am
Yeah. We
really
broke a
excited
van
to
last
do
weekend.
that.
Sure did.
Well, if it was all-wheel drive, you probably would have been okay. You just had to go a little faster in
Would have
that
been
thing
fun.
to
Would have
do
been
what you need
fun.
to do.
Seriously, there are so many neat places you would love. So we would love to host you
Oh,
out here as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure
I've
thing.
been there a little bit when I was a kid. My great aunt lived in Dardanelle.
Yeah. We're
Oh
close
yeah.
to
I'm
there.
sure they're right on the base of Mount Nebo, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Russellville
Yeah.
or Dardanelle. I'm
Russellville.
trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Dardanelle and
pretty.
Russellville are right beside each other. One's on one side of the river, one's on the other. But Dardanelle's right
Okay.
at the base of Mount Nebo, which is the
Yeah.
second highest peak in Arkansas.
And it's
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah.
About an hour from us.
Yeah. I was only 14 when I was out there last, but you come from a
That
beautiful
has been a
state.
while. Well,
Yeah.
that's 40 years.
Yeah.
Goodness.
40 years.
Well,
Well, thanks for having me, you two.
I want to
Thank you so
encourage
much.
you on your diet journey, getting healthy. If you ever need somebody to talk to about that, I've been down that road. So
Yeah.
We're
would
still
love
on
to.
that road.
Still
You
on
know,
that road.
it never you know what I
It
Never
mean?
never
stops.
stops.
Never
It's
stops.
always
Yeah.
it's a it's a journey.
It
Yeah.
is a journey
I don't have
every
to lose a
day.
lot, but I mean, it's a lot to me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Last time I did it, I was like, well, that's never going to happen again. And here I
Yeah. Here
am.
we are. Here we are.
But yep, I could always use an accountability partner. So that's
You
great.
betcha. Well, we love your products. Love using them and never leave home without them. So really thank you for doing what you do. I want
Yeah.
to thank everyone for listening to the podcast. This will be on all podcast platforms tomorrow. Hope you learned as much as my wife and I did. So on
Yeah.
behalf of my wife and I, thank you for listening.
Thanks.
And on behalf of Glacial Gear, we really appreciate you coming on the podcast. So I
Yeah,
hope
it was
everybody
so nice to meet you.
has a
Yeah,
wonderful
you too.
week. And as I always say at the end of every podcast, have a great time. Get outdoors, and whatever you do, look out for number one. And don't
That's
step
what I'm talking about.